we on air? I think so. Let me check, I have to see this on the other screen. This is very funny. Hello, I'm sorry, I still have to set things up and make sure this is working as expected. I'm still not too sure about the levels, but we'll see. Alright, well then, let's do this. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me check the levels for a second. This really makes sense. It's the first time, so... setup is far from optimized right now. As you can see, I'm juggling stuff around, and this is my way of checking if the levels make sense. Hey Pipush! Alright, sounds reasonable. Should do it. You're here for the wisdom. Well, you basically got the first round already, so I don't have that much more to say. No, seriously. Hello, Fire Apple Red. Nice to see you around. Guys, you caught me on the hottest day in summer this year in Hamburg so far. It's whopping 33 degrees outside. Just went home because it was raining like ass, but it didn't change anything. So that's why I have to drink a lot of water. How are you? Alex? Ableton audio is too loud. Yeah, we can change that easily. I already lowered that one a little bit. Is this better? Yeah, heat wave, absolutely. Tomoya, how are you? 20,000 degrees in Copenhagen. Yeah, I think it's the heat wave in Europe is crushing right now. I love it. It's great. I mean, when do we really have summer? That's why I also have all these water supplies with me, and I'm trying to empty that because my throat is very... Wow, it's very dry. First bottle empty. I'm still trying to make sense of the setup right now because I shifted a few things around from the last test, where I had the camera facing straight to me. And right now I shifted it off to the left, and I have a monitor there and my MacBook here where I watch you guys, in case anyone's wondering what's he looking down to all the time. That's here. And I was trying to make the microphone sound a little better. That's why I had this pop filter today, but frankly it's too close. It doesn't really do much. Yeah, what games do you play on Steam? PUBG? I'm one of those guys sometimes. Well, I recently tried and failed very well. So I really suck at playing. But let's not talk about games today, shall we? Yeah, so how's been the day for you? And is the level really better now? Or should it be turned down much more? Because I mean, right now it's not the full scale. Let's check it. That track, we're going to talk about that one, and it's really just a little bit something I tossed together for the purpose of dissecting it here. It's way not finished. I think I spent a total amount of 2 hours doing that after listening to good old Maurizio 7, because I think there is a lot of interesting stuff going on there that I'm trying to decrypt a little bit in this session. And if you get the idea, you should be able to make something like that in the same time. I mean, it's not really that complicated if you wrap your mind about a few things. Yeah, the M series. Very interesting, because I've been listening through the basic channel to M series catalog today for the sake of preparing, and it's interesting how the guys' sound evolved over the releases. And if you're listening, by the way, get headphones, because a lot of things are very tiny and probably not too easy to spot on laptop speakers or something, so I would really recommend you to tune in with a proper set of headphones. Yeah, M4, well, all of them, magic. On your studio monitors, good choice. I'm sorry. This the pre-world where I have to talk about random shit until maybe some more people tune in, and I'm not sure if I have to cut this one out and how to edit that. Yeah, anyway, maybe we can start off with a little bit of general ITB versus hardware stuff, and then I want to talk about proper metering and gain staging, making some noise, like the good kind of noise. Your voice overlaps perfectly over the track. It almost feels like it belongs in there. Maybe I should just read something from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy to the track. Anyway, I'm really interested to see how time develops, because I have no idea how much time it will take to go into these topics. I have a huge list, obviously. There is even more, like chord programming and layering sounds. Then again, it's all connected, so we'll see. I think the stream should be going for at least 2 hours, and I hope you have the time. Benjamin, hi. You like a whispering track name. Alright, yeah, let me try something. because I have this preamp. I don't want to go too close to the thing. Is it getting any better now? Let me keep talking. And Benjamin, you say alright when it's alright. I'm still raising the level. Raising the level. Still. Is it getting any better? Yeah, to be honest, I have no ideas about microphones, because what I do obviously doesn't need much voice recordings, and so I recently, for the purpose of streaming, I got myself this reasonable microphone, as well as the lovely tube amp from, what is it? Tube Art. Yeah, that studio thing. And I think this is going into the reds right now. Yeah, well, if you say that's okay, let's keep it like that. I mean, wait, I can check that as well. Yeah, that's me talking, and that's me listening to me talking. In-ear plugs are dead. Yeah, I think the YouTube chat lags a bit. Yes. There are some settings in the YouTube streaming options, and I've been a little bit conservative with those because I don't have the stablest ISP, and I would like to rather go for stability today instead of going for maximum settings and everything, and then have the stream crashing like all 5 minutes. So we'll figure that out in the future, I guess. And I need more water. So since we all know now that the chat is lagging, let's take that into credit. So, well then, let's get to it. Let's talk a little bit about, and just let me disable the kick and stuff again. I mean, for now we don't need that much of music. Where do I start? I mean, that's such a broad topic, and if you've been reading forums about in-the-box production versus hardware, you've seen all those very emotional discussions around all this stuff, especially when it comes to introducing noise, for example. But there are real differences in the way audio works in the analog realm as opposed to the digital world, and you need to be aware of them if you want to go for all these fine details in Dub Techno. I think at least it's very important, because once I started thinking about that, the door opened. And I mean, if you're producing with hardware and you have a mixer and some gear, there are a few things you always get for free, and one is noise. The other thing is saturation. And there's also differences in the way, for example, envelopes work. At least I think if you're working with a truly analog gear, you're working with CV internally, unless it's digitally envelopes. So you're able, in the digital world, for example, to create really harsh transients all the time, because if the gear developers don't think about it, they will just throw in random values. Like you can open the envelope instantly, and that, in a musical sense, it doesn't make sense. I mean, it's just harsh noise that comes out. You can pierce your eardrums with certain envelope types. And that is something you don't get that easily if you're working with hardware. I mean, if you're working with digital hardware and synth, there might be a chance. There was this thing with the Korg Minilog, I think, where people were complaining about the envelope clicking all the time. Pepush, you've got one, right? Maybe you can verify that. I heard they updated that, and as far as I know and I understand, that is because the envelope opened instantly. So if the waveform drifts and you press the key, it doesn't matter where the envelope is drifting. You want to buy one. So if it opens and you're not hitting zero cross point, it starts clicking, obviously. And I already played with synths, especially in software, where you could set decay times so short. The burst at the beginning was just pain. I mean, that's what I started with Bass Tracker, if anybody knows that. It was more like, yeah, let's just do this stuff. And certainly some developers just for this joy of developing something just threw in any values, and you could create things that were just painful, and you had to become aware of that and then use value ranges that make sense so you're not killing yourself. And that's also a difference if you're working with hardware. What I think, it very often behaves more musically because the law of physics apply. I mean, with CV stuff, I think this is a dead end because I just noticed looking at the modular, it doesn't make sense what I'm saying. Not for real. Then again, there is something about that. Well, I'm claiming things you do in a pure hardware studio, there are certain issues you just don't face that easily. I mean, if you want, for example, saturation in the hardware setup, distorting your bass drum, the one thing that people did back then was just cranking up the gain on the input level. It's like super easy, free distortion for anything. In the digital world, you need a plugin for that. And then it depends on the quality of the plugin and the algorithm, if what comes out in the end is any good or not. You guys still with me? Everybody's listening. And it helped me a great deal to think about the ways people made music back then. I've been more... You're trying to follow my thoughts. Please interrupt me and ask questions. I mean, that's why it's live. You can do that. If once it's recorded and gone, it's gone. Well, then we can still try to write stuff in the comments and stuff. But where was I? Setup. I mean, all this techno stuff. It's made with reasonably cheap hardware. And there is nothing too complicated. It's not rocket science. Wayfinder I. And when I started using Bass Tracker, for those who don't know, it was a piece of... It was a DAW release around 98, I think. And was the first real modular approach to music production on the production level. And I easily started completely overcrowding my effect chains with everything. Every problem that I wanted to fix, I added a new effect with. Maybe that's familiar to you. I don't know, this sounds shitty, let's throw in another EQ or another compressor. And if you think about that, you can't really do that in a hardware setup unless you're super rich and can afford like 10 fancy compressors. But usually that's not the case. You have to work with a rather limited setup, and there are benefits to working that way in the digital world and transferring these thoughts, because for example, saturation happens. It happens if you run more than just one channel through a saturation effect or distortion. There are some interesting things that may happen. Yeah, and that's a totally different approach. And once you think about it, what is the easiest way to get something done? What would Moritz von Oswald have done like back in the day? Or any guy whose music you like. If you ask yourself, how would he have done it with a limited setup? Very often the answer isn't that complicated. And the more I'm reading online, the more complicated it gets. That's at least my impression from reading forums for like 20 years and participating. And it's one of the things I constantly try to get people away from. Like, no, not another effect and not another thing on top. Maybe less is more. Bogdan, hey man. Wow. Nice to see you around. How are you doing? I heard you made some music lately. And to get back to the topic, also because of the way gain works in the analog world and the way gain works in the digital world, things easily get out of hand. I mean, in the analog world, you get noise for free, like I said, and sometimes if you want, I mean, that's why noise gates were invented, to get rid of the noise that old shitty hardware makes. And if you pay attention to all the good old Maurizio tracks, you can often hear tiny hints of so that's a gate at work, probably, which is something I'm not doing in the digital world because there are other options nowadays. But by lowering the volume in the hardware world, you get a different ratio between signal to noise. That's why it's called signal to noise ratio. And these are always these have always been things you need to be aware of, and it still kind of makes sense to think about it. I mean, there is no noise, obviously, yet people completely overdo gain in the digital world. Every tutorial I'm watching on YouTube, they are close to the reds, or I mean, every second promo I'm getting is completely overblown, and there is a lot of stuff I just can't play because it lacks dynamics. It's dead. And that also is something I made wrong back in the day. Like, get hotter, immer more. So, the question then is, how do I do it right now? And some magic happened when I started using a VO meter. I've got this free one from TBT Pro Audio. Fire Apple Red. Yeah, nobody seems to leave headroom in videos, and people think that's the norm. Yeah, I mean, louder is always better, isn't it? Not for me. Not if you want an organic moving sound. that has a good energy. And that's where VU meters come into play. They offer a different way of looking at the energy of your track. I mean, if you're looking at the tiny meters in Ableton, you can like push them up, but for one, I think the representation of the level isn't 100% accurate. And that's something... Hey Don, how are you doing? Yeah, levels. You can see that the update rate on these levels is a little bit edgy. It doesn't feel like it's updated in real time. I mean, if you would update these levels in real time, that would mean in sampling rate for, you would have to update that 22,050 times per channel, twice for a stereo channel. And yeah, it gets worse in here. I can barely see the level, and yeah, but I don't trust it. I have made the experience that a lot of tracks of mine had these peaks. I didn't have any idea where they came from. If you look closely in the waveform, no matter what I did, there were like these crazy spikes somewhere, and if you go with that into a mastering compressor or any device in your chain, shit starts to happen. You get all kinds of weird artifacts in your music that you really don't want to have. And the easiest way to get away from that is, for one thing, use a VU meter that tells you stay the fuck away from digital zero, because these are working internally with 18 dB. Zero here says minus 18 dB. And that's a very analog way of thinking, because this is also much more accurate display of the movement of everything that's going on. I have a better impression of what this feels like, at least to me. If you say, oh, that's totally weird, I don't get it, don't. But that's what I do, and ever since I started producing that way, my sound and a lot of mixing problems, they just vanished. And to a certain extent I get that, because I also started setting dynamics processing in a much different way, which I'm going to show you in a few minutes. Because you're just not arbitrarily pulling up some output knob by 5 dB anymore, if you understand gain staging, because you're looking for the change of the effect and not for the change because you changed the volume. I really want to hear what this device is doing net, and not in the context of making it louder, because louder always sounds more powerful. That's a trick our ear just can't get rid of. Oh, it's loud, it's good. Water. So what I'm doing when I'm mixing is I simply put the VU meter into my master and never ever try to go into the reds with everything in the track going on. So I need to make this a little bit louder to hear what I'm doing. Yeah, I hate the gain meters between devices in Ableton. Yes, me too. They are very, well, I don't trust them. And it's a very important detail for sure, because when I'm looking back and I've been using VSTs for a long time. There were times, and I wish Joachim would be here right now, bass developer, or any developer, when certain bursts and changes in level made plugins crash. That was nice. You just overload the input and then it starts crashing. Ooh, bye. Or you, because the value gets out of range and the way the old Intel chips were built, you ran into denormalization bugs. It simply started trying to figure out what the fuck is going on, and it started calculating. The CPU went through the roof. And it still occasionally does that. For me right now, I think that's related to my UAD hardware and the age of my old mainboard. Yeah. So, gain staging. Let's distort some shit. And start dissecting this track, because maybe stuff makes more sense than theory. So let's have a look at the bass line. This is a rather, by the way, important detail, this track isn't done. I made it really for the purpose of having something to talk about, and I didn't want it to be finished because I think it's so easy to get lost in all the mixing details and stuff. I just made it as mood thing. So, bassline. Let's look at the bassline right now and not get into too much detail. This is a standard sine wave driven thingy with a little bit of sub octave. Nothing too interesting here. Well, then again, there is a little detail. If you listen to a lot of the old Maurizio stuff, I personally found the bass not to be that snappy in your face very often, like this. Of course, at M5 it is, but certain other tracks like M7, I think, they have this rather sloppy attack curve. And just for the purpose of also not interfering with my kick, that's another thing we can talk about later. I set it a little bit slower, just to give it this. I'm lazy. All right, then I have this section which I'm calling the dust section, which isn't that interesting. Wait, we have to. Noise is important. So this is my dust section, and you really have to pay attention right now. I call this the Porter Ricks effect. It's just a very nice tape noise gate thingy that throws a little bit of on top. Love it. But you have to be cautious about it. The benefit of this, by the way, if you have a very subby thing going on, and that's also something you can spot in a lot of basic channel tracks, for example, especially in, I think, Q1.2, if you pay attention and listen very closely, you will find that the bass line starts fading in, and the only thing you can really hear is the dust on top and this crunch, and it also helps you finding this in a mix in a better way. Because if you only have the sub, depending on how it would be, I could start cutting it away even further. The more washed out and less tight it would feel. And if you start adding this crunch on top, maybe that's enough. And you really let me overdo this for a second. It's easier to track for a brain because there's something that adds to the groove, if that makes sense to you. I mean, simply said, higher frequencies are easier to hear. The rest is more for the body. And the other thing that I'm loving is this noise thingy. It's basically same but different. It has more options, and you can create much more static noise that almost has vinylish qualities. Let me turn this up for a while. And you can filter it, get really low, and it's very different from just white noise. I've been experimenting a lot with white noise already, and it's white noise and all brown noise and pink noise. They are very, very static, and this is more like deep vinyl hum, and you can change the shape. By the way, these are free plugins. You can download them right now from airwindows.com, and you should, because they are totally amazing, and there is a lot of more brilliant stuff waiting, which I often think, this does nothing. And then you figure out, oh wait, this does something. But that would be too much to go into detail right now. So, noise. More noise. Some kind of phase thingy, high cut, of course. Shape adds another little bit grit. You hear that? Anyway, what did I want to do? Try that. Let's get back to the bass. We wanted to distort the bass. And now it gets interesting. I mean, let's be cautious about the level. If I really want to hear what this is doing, is the stream stalling? No, it isn't. If I really want to hear what this thing is doing for when I have to go loud, and it doesn't do very much right now. So there we go. And now I'm adding level. I added 12 dB, and it's just too much. So I'm lowering the output by 12 dB. And now we're talking proper gain staging, and can listen exactly to the way the sound has changed without making it louder. And that's what I like about using VU meters. That's way too much. And that's a very good trick to saturate just the high frequencies. If I think the issue with mixing bass right now would be if I didn't do this. Let me set the levels correctly. Assuming that I'm playing all the notes at the same velocity and volume and nothing is changing. The high frequencies, I'm sorry, we'll answer your question in a second. The high frequencies might interfere with the bass drum's decay or release. And this is a good way to get rid of the problem. You can make it louder without making it louder. And it simply becomes more apparent by dialing this in. And let's lower. It's really subtle. And right now, before, after. Ah, this is nasty. It's causing issues. I'm not sure if this really, these headphones are very, very good because they go totally low to, I think, 8 hertz or something. And there is a little tiny something going on below right now that I'm liking. Anyway, so if you're working this way with your compression, saturation, and limiters and stuff, you get much more control over the dynamics of your track, and that's really the point. If you want music that sounds good, you need to be mindful about what you do, and you can't be mindful about that if you don't split the effect you want from additional gain. That's the idea of really pushing things step by step. So there is a question. Does the meter take much CPU? Could you get away with it on all channels? I didn't try. And to be honest, I'm fine with simply throwing this onto the master because in the end you're mixing in context anyway. There are certain things I would never change on the track if I'm worried about, or if I'm into the mode of fixing issues. But with EQing, for example, I would always do that in the context of the track. So, Simonas, why did you put the compressor last instead of EQ, and why did you cut off bass till 40 hertz? Let's have a look. Why didn't I do that? So I'm using the auto filter to get rid of the really low end. Let me see if this displays anything. No, it doesn't. You can't see the change here, but if you listen closely, it instantly becomes louder because of the way this channel is set up. So I'm preferring sometimes the auto filter to get rid of very, very low stuff and not use the EQ8 because, I don't know, it's just a matter of preference. There is no magic to that. Anyway, there's another thing, and it's good that I'm looking at right now. If you have this kind of subby stuff that is more or less just sines, and you're working with like 808 or 909, which are in the DK as well, very sine-based things, and you put everything through the center, if things are not perfectly in tune, that's something very important as well. If they are not perfectly tuned, you get issues as well. And if you pay very close attention to stuff like M07B, there is something going on with the bass phase, and I think that relates to the console he's using. It's one of these arbitrary things consoles do sometimes, the way they change the phase, and that's something I'm doing here. It's a free variety of sound, some old thing. You can go for waves NLS, for example, if you like, or other console emulations. I mean, there is not a lack of that, and they should be doing that as well in certain ranges. But that's what this thing is doing. It opens the phase just a little bit. And normally I thought, doing that on the bass, it kind of sucks. But, well, Moritz von Oswald did it. It sounds good. What the heck? And it's really a good trick. And in the end, if you would master that for club systems anyway, you could still add a mono filter and make the very low end mono. So I don't see a huge problem with that. We're talking about a certain kind of sound here, and this is perfectly suitable for doing that. And let's see if I get any haters on track who will tell me this is like the stupidest idea ever. And I'm not 100% sure that it's a very, very good idea, but it kind of solves problems. Right now, the bass line is almost disappearing, isn't it? Almost gone. And it just adds with which you can control. Maybe that's also too much. And then, yeah. Anyway, nerd-splaining stuff. Hey, David, how are you doing? Nice to see you around. That was kind of fun today to realize who you are and how our paths crossed in the past already. That was good. I like that. It's the internet magic. So wait, there was another. Why did you cut off bass to 40 hertz? Yeah, because there is another something with bass, and that's a little bit counterintuitive. The area below 20 to 30 hertz, the subs, it sucks so much energy from your available headroom, which you can't hear on most systems. And especially if you're dealing with these low tune sine waves, you're creating a lot of that. Let's look at it this way. There is really like, oh boy. I mean, the relation, this is the root node, the lower root node, and that peaks at -12, and the relation to the sub is just 6 decibels. That's a lot. And if you start removing the very low parts, you get more bass, which doesn't make sense, but it makes sense. Especially if you run that through compressor later on. Changing the relationship is not, I'm not entirely removing everything from the sub area. I'm just rolling it off a little bit further so everything above that can become more apparent. And that way you get the impression of more bass because you change the relationship between sub and the audible bass parts. Is this a suitable answer for you? And yeah. I mean, there is nothing going on. And there's also not that much. Maybe we can see what's going on. If this thing had better levels, you can see right now you're getting much more energy from the low areas that you can't really hear. And bass wants to breathe as well. So that's why, and that's something I'm tuning by ear, not by science. It's just I'm searching for a sweet spot, and sometimes I change it like 10 times, especially in relation to the kick. Let's see. Oh no, that's wrong. Plugin instance, sorry. Yeah, let's remove it entirely. That's the bass drum, which is rather boring. And right now, if it, way too much. I'm not sure if you can hear it. And right now it starts opening up. There's also this, oops, this funny little accented note in the end. Whoop, 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 whoop. And that also becomes a little bit more apparent by cutting down something from the lows. How bad is it, Wayfinder? My mic is distorting. Yeah, maybe I should dial it back a little bit. VU meter says don't do it. Better? Yeah, you weren't here. It's a new setup, new microphone, this tube amp thingy, and I can't make sense of this level right now. You have to crank up the output or end the input and relation, and it's still too little, and ugh. Anyway, bass, yeah. And just a second. So, while we're at it, one of the most important things and easiest overlooked is getting the tuning of kick and bass aligned. Imagine you have, no, I don't have to paint this. Since this is very Zine-based material and they are playing close in the same range, if they overlap and they are not perfectly in tune, they will phase out. You get all these overlapping artifacts, and sometimes I still think you can hear that there is something going on with the kick, that the attack disappears, and that's another classic mixing problem. I said it's not mixed yet, so I didn't take care about that. But this is something to be really aware of as well. Getting the tuning right, as good as you can, because that's the easiest and way to fuck everything up in your low end. Maybe I'm liking this even better. And that's something you have to verify by listening. Just let it play and listen to it and pay attention, and you will figure out if you have problems or not. And I can hear that this is right now gets more into the problematic areas. Let me turn down the volume and listen for the attack of the bass drum. Was more problematic before. Let's see if I can dial in some issues. I can't. Well, maybe. Hello, Kane. Hi, Matthias. How are you doing, guys? Sweaty? Is it hot? Yeah, I'm sorry for all the water drinking interruptions, but I'm literally dying in here because I also have this light set up that you can see me a little bit, and it's like 50 degrees inside. So what I'm looking for right now, I tuned up the release of the bass drum. That's something you can temporarily do to verify if you're running into issues. Just create overlaps. Ah, yeah, now we're getting there. Ah, yeah. And you can verify that. Sometimes you get into the overloaded area, and that's exactly what you want to avoid by tuning the bass drum correctly. Let's see if it still happens. No, it's fixed. So you hopefully get that idea. Now can turn down the kick again and make this more pleasing. Benjamin says, life hack, replace water with rum and add 2 ice cubes. Yeah, you want to see that stream? Really? I could so enjoy a beer right now and I shouldn't do that. So tuning the bass drum and the bass, lining them up correctly. I mean, it's still not super fancy. Let's get to the exciting stuff, the chords, right? And no, one thing before we do that, and that's something I wish I started with it, is how to listen to music. How do you guys listen to music? That's a good one. Sorry. Oh, right now I'm getting some nice feedback over there. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry, it's with gas. It has to come out somehow. Yeah, you're listening to music with your ears. And so I wondered, and maybe you guys can verify that, if you're looking around on forums and Facebook groups, I'm sorry, this doesn't make sense if I'm speaking. There are so many people out there asking which synth is that and which effect is that, and is this really the interesting part? I mean, right now, this project, everything you hear is 90% Ableton. Okay, we have the noise making thingies and a few additional helpers, but the rest is stock Ableton plugins. And listening to music becomes much more interesting if you ask yourself other questions than which plugin is that. But I mean, they all share a certain set of parameters. Every polyphonic synth has an LFO and some envelopes, and there's nothing too fancy about it. Yes, you have different filter characteristics, but if you start really paying attention to what's going on, the movement, like which effects did he use? Right now you can hear a phaser, and you could ask yourself about the frequency range, and if something else was playing right now, what's the timing of the delays, for example, easily overlooked as well. It's like, that's something I want to get to now by looking at the chords, is get away from the grid. It's another super cheap and easy trick, and it changes the entire feel of music if you start getting away from quantizing your everything. Let's see. This is I disable. So let's look at the chords and just listen to this for a while. Which waveforms are that? How many sounds do I hear? Is it one sound? I mean, obviously you can see right now it's made up from 3-layer tracks, so you know. But would you knew if it wasn't on the screen? And quite frankly, there is no synth. Yeah, there are a few, but doing this with one instrument, that's super stupid. You don't want to do that. And that's very irritating for many people. Which synth would have all these options to tweak right now? So let's break the chord down and let me disable the effects. So what do we have here? That's analog. Super simple, square driven sound. It's drifting a little bit, detune, The filter is interesting, and that's where it really starts piling up. If you get away from the grid here, disable this button. Jeffrey, hey, it'll be available on Facebook. I have the impression I didn't talk too much crap tonight, so I will just keep it on YouTube for further reference. Anyway, what you want to do if you're in for a sound like the Maurizio stuff, for example, you want to create as much autonomous movement as possible. And right now there is nothing going on. There is no further automation going on. It's just this LFO slow cycle, a little bit. Not even the envelope is playing. And that's it. Oh no, wait. Another thing. No, that's on the different channel. Sorry, I'm getting confused. So the entire movement comes from this. Is it? Yeah, right now it's static. It's always the same, and that's fucking boring. Just a little bit of cycling. I like the noise option here. Here we have the dust section again. A little bit of phasing, which isn't that interesting either right now. Maybe that is too much noise. Oh yeah, that's a lot of noise. And then again, let's listen. Oh, Jesus, yeah. I'm afraid no piece of hardware gear would ever make so much noise. Anyway. Moving on, interesting use of the phaser. This one isn't moving. It is moving. I'm sorry. I use it differently on the other track. Right now I'm getting really confused. Movement. Just more movement. The more, the better. And I really like very, very slow things. And this is just, yeah, making it even more compression, a little bit of compression, and that's that part. And just to be sure what we're talking about right now, let me, I thought this would work. I had to build down my APC 40 because I needed the space for the MacBook to see you guys. Otherwise I could use the thingy. But let's listen without anything. Ugh. Sorry. Boring. Nothing tricky about that. It's really, really simple. Super stupid chord. It's also interesting. One thing, if you remove this note, listen to the change. It's not much, but if you start distorting and saturating that a little bit, just having this lower end here will change the way the grid you get, I'd say. So boring. Let's get back to the filter. And then so when I started making that track, I simply doubled the line, copy paste, put it in here. It's basically the same thing with another little trick, and that's where the metallic stuff comes from. And right now, and that's what I like about noise, by the way. It makes space tangible. There isn't much going on right now. And even without anything playing right now, except this bit of noise here, where did that came from? creates space. And there was a time when I was thinking, you're adding noise only to sound like you're doing a vinyl release and then you put it on a digital label and it makes your track sound fancier. And no, that's not the case. The way I think about it right now, it makes the room of the track tangible. It makes it visible. It creates dimension where nothing is happening. So let's have a look at this one. Are the levels okay, by the way? So, same thing as before. This on the other track is moving at 3.1 hertz, and this one is slightly slower. And in addition to the LFO thingy, it also gets a little bit of envelope to have the attack. If you listen to the other thing that is moving a lot, sometimes it almost completely disappears. And I want to make sure that this layer always provides a little bit of attack and something in the higher areas. And if you mix it together, it starts making sense. It still doesn't sound too interesting. It gets a little bit of dust again. The phaser. And that's where it starts to shine and get interesting. This very metallic-like quality. Again, the rate not locked to anything. Hi Marco, how are you doing? Been sweating as well. Different rates create longer movements. Before they, I mean, this is simple math probably, the lowest common denominator, how much time they need to know, need until they meet in the same spot. With slow LFOs, this can take a while. I'm not good with math, but I'm figuring out this is really slow. And sometimes when these both meet at a certain point, you get some metallic clonk. And that's not even that much audible, but it's there. And it gets much more interesting if you start adding effects. Yeah, Marco, I'm toasted as well. I really have a hard time focusing on my words. So variation, really ebb and flow. You want to create stuff like this doesn't make much sense, but you get the idea. It's overlapping waves, and this drawing totally sucks, but it hopefully delivers the point. You want to create as much movement that doesn't meet too early if you're into music that keeps on changing and changing. And I think that Moritz von Oswald landed a little bit from Steve Reich. Have you heard stuff like, what's it? 6 pianos, for example, where he's just slightly changing notes, and it takes place over 25 minutes, I think, and the effect is quite dramatic, but it comes apparent really slowly, and that's what we're looking for. And you could listen to this for quite a while, because now we're adding another layer of movement. The chorus is basically a very boring thing. It's just a chorus, yet it adds another layer of feedback. Right now, also just a bit slow rate, EQ to get rid of some low-end fizzle, and then go for that. And when you play these along and listen to that with the effects, that's when it starts to get interesting, because things start happening, things you can't control. And that's to me really the Moritz von Oswald track. Sorry, Moritz. I hope I didn't gave away your best kept secret. And it took me years to figure that out. I guess the subtle changes and movement you're talking about make the different on these records we all love, like the M series. Yes, that's really the difference, to me at least. I mean, it's imagine this stuff wouldn't be happening right now. You wouldn't be able to listen to this for. Let's make the example. This is still a little bit moving because of the phaser and the chorus, but it's like 100 times less interesting, isn't it? And it's just this. And that's why it doesn't make sense to ask about synths and gear and whatever. It's the wrong question. And I find it weird. There is so much going on because then it also goes into saturation, which has quite drastic effect sometimes, depending on the levels it gets. Let's disable it. It sounds rather dull. And if you pay close attention to basic channel stuff and the M series, very often there is this kind of grit and saturation tied to exactly these events where stuff hits hard. And that's also just driven a little bit. And sometimes you can, let's listen to that for a minute. And can you hear what the saturation is doing? Let's disable that. And it's not a dramatic effect. It just creates the impression of musicality and something natural. And there is no science to that. It's a free device. It comes with Ableton. Just use it. Do it! And pay attention. I mean, and really this I'm talking is about a certain kind of mindset. And that is, imagine what you would get at which stage if you were working with hardware. And then apply the same rules and the same logic to this workflow, and it instantly starts sounding more musical and more natural and less digital and less dead and less harsh on the ears. There's also not that much compression going on. And sometimes, because the peaks we get here, since it's doing its own thing over the course of hours, we don't know what it might produce. It could be really at a certain point create a really big gnarly transient, and that's why I'm catching these transients with a limiter set at minus 18 dB because of the meter. I never want to go into the reds, and in case something bad is happening, it will start just removing a little bit of the nasty attacks. And this, if you don't do that, you're stockpiling issues for the mastering engineer. If you do that cautiously on every track, your music will become much easier to tame in the end, even for yourself. If you're attempting to master yourself, make sure you get nice peaks and nice levels to work with and good dynamics. It's like taking care of your own track for future use. And that's something really important. So I added another layer to the step, and that is really just another tiny little thing. Nothing interesting. It's a stupid saw. Oh wait, I forgot something. I'm very sorry. To create even more variation here, it's exactly the same chord. Verified. Alright. It has static velocity, but, and I wish the Ableton devices had some more of that, but it's enough. Analog comes with that. On the amp, you can set the amount of velocity changes to the envelope. And in order to change the velocity from the static thing, I added a random layer. And it's just, again, a tiny bit of movement and a little bit more randomness. You can make this much more drastic. Apparent enough? So best device. It's super overlooked. I love using it all the time for bass lines as well, and just use velocity to create a little bit of movement on the filter as well. It's great. Magic. Insta magic. Another layer to the same step, and sometimes you can hear these tiny little, very raw and dull sounding things in steps on basic channel stuff as well. This is one of this layer kindy thingy that just adds a little bit of raw waveform stuff, which I like. Has this testy the vibe flavor, and it's really just a stupid saw. By the way, which time do we have? Oh, I think we are doing good. There isn't that much. By the way, I don't hear any questions, so I deem this is kind of interesting, or did you guys fall asleep already? Then I will just continue. So, stupid saw is stupid. Has the same kind of grid section, just this tiny something. It's bits on top, same tape dust thingy. Dani, hi. Brain needs noise to be orientated. Yes, yes, yes. It's a way to torture people by isolating them from noise. They will go mad. So hooray for noise. Yes, they made this interesting experiment where they put a person into a completely audio vacuum in this anechoic chamber that doesn't have any sound, and you will get mad because you start hearing your heart pounding and your blood flow and all that, and noise is a perfect distraction from that. And I think if I think about it, in the tomb of our mothers we hear a certain kind of noise as well, so we are very accustomed to that. I love the sound of rain for the same reason. I just love it when it rains. It soothes me like nothing else, and it's the same with noise. Yeah, Wayfinder, anechoic. It's this kind of unword. Bogdan, beer no sleep. Yeah. Tomoya, I wouldn't be afraid of your streams becoming ASMR or okay, now I get it. It's these people who do like hello, right? So Wayfinder says there's a video on YouTube where someone spends about an hour in anechoic chamber, and what's the verdict? He doesn't turn mad. Maybe he's deaf. Anyway, Stupid Saw is doing stupid sawy things. It gets a little bit of phasing, and this is another interesting thing because no, it's moving as well. What I wanted to talk about is sometimes I use phasing just for the sake of adding color and not for the sake of movement. Phaser is like super easy way to change the way something sounds. Let's verify that. No, I need to... Oh, nasty boy. Shit. I'm sorry if you're listening. I hope I didn't destroy your ears right now. So, phaser. Boring. Interesting flavor. No movement. And sometimes I just put a phaser on to change the way, add a little bit of metallic character. I like that. And that's super easy because, I mean, a phaser is basically filters who are... Okay, I shouldn't go there. Oh, nice. No, it's... Is it disappearing now? Let's see if he's coming back. Hey, Stupid Saw, where did you go? What did I do there? Of course. What's happening now? Well, let's just keep it that way. So, I need to make up my mind for a second. I think I'm reaching 60 degrees in here. Okay, and right now we hear why phaser movement was cool. I don't know why this has become so long. Well then. Oh, by the way, something I forgot. Somebody of you is going to win license for Dub machines, and I'm going to be just randomly putting all your names in a list and let Axel do the job, if you're fine with that. So, everybody who participated in the chat, one of you will get something. And thank you very much, Matt. That's super nice of you to give this out for the first stream. Woo! Because right now we're talking effects. Let me check this. Oh. So, not much interesting here. This is Magnetic, which allows you to... It's basically my favorite thing when it comes to Roland Space Echo 201 emulations. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's the only thing that costs money. That costs money in here. The rest, there are freebies. Go to Air Windows, download everything. There's a pack. You should totally do that because there is so much more I will talk about in other streams, because he does like really interesting stuff. He's got some saturation plugins that totally change how filter sweeps sound from digitally boring to awesome because of magic. I don't know how he does it. It's great stuff. And magnetic, yeah, it's as well. Wow, changes the way the tempo is aligned. Without wow, it's perfectly lined up. A little bit of that, it creates movement, another layer of movement, and that's what we're looking for. And something I like as well is Ableton stock filter delay. Here, best option. If you have this set at 0% and go for long feedbacks, they will appear exactly at the same spot, and that's totally not analog. This is like the sync option and a little bit off. That's like the make shit more interesting option of this plugin. And I'm using that all the time. And wherever you can, if something has a sync option, that can be cool. Like this here right now, it does make sense to have a rhythmic way in which things can exist for this high stuff. Otherwise, it could easily overload and interfere with stuff like hi-hats, for example. But the slight drift, it creates movement as well. And so it's really about piling layers of movement and making things move. And that's how you end up with something like this. There is no particular magic to that, just a certain kind of approach, like making things move over time. Using slow LFOs where possible. I mean, I could have even used Robert Henkes LFO, the Max for Live device. It's also a great option. In Bitwig, you get all the modulations you want everywhere. That's also totally amazing. I'm looking forward to making a version of this topic for Bitwig. So, and now, since this is playing, I could start mixing and making the sound itself more tight and interesting. And all I would do then is disable the shaker sometimes and do this. And that's the reverb. And that's Dub Techno, instantly. That's so dub. Something I obviously like doing as well is playing with the feedback intensity. Which you have to be very careful with, and obviously you want to map that to MIDI controls. And that's something you can easily record on the fly and really start listening to it and wait for something to happen and maybe be lucky and in the right moment hit reverb really hot on the right channel that is at the right spot, and instantly you will create whoosh. And that's why I'm also, if I was recording that, I would probably take like either half an hour and just see what I can find in there, or make a few versions and edits. And yeah, I don't need much else. And the interesting thing I mean, right now, let's look at the level. Even if this one isn't optimized for sounding loud right now. And let me see, because it would change the relationship between voice. But let me do this for a second. And Benjamin, I will get to your question. Just for the sake of seeing how loud I can get this with almost zero effort. Let's do this. And yes, it's loud. I hope it's not clipping. So, once again, it's pretty easy to tax this up to 8-9 dB RMS, because we took care about the problems. We made sure the peaks are nice and the issues are handled, even though this is not yet perfectly mixed for most bang and there might be issues and shit. We can easily crank this up using this magic thingy and this good thing. Another Air Windows plugin, one of my favorites. I recently started remastering my track back catalog from Schleudertraum and Rohformat, and I simply exported the tracks using XMPlay as 24-bit wave, and putting them through this adds so much energy. It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, it has a louder button that makes it louder in a tape-ish way, and you can hear the way the kick transient is starting to be eaten away if you crank this up way too much. And likewise, there's an option to make things fatter, which goes up to 12, I think. But see, it's way too much. Anyway, if you dial in a little bit of that and then get the tapey sound and dial that in a little, then I wonder where the gain has gone. Ah, yeah, that's why I'm here. I'm sorry. Let's do this for a second. Way too much, way too much. And that's mastering for idiots. Sorry, it's not mastering. It's just getting your stuff loud if you want to send it to a friend. I mean, right now you can start hearing issues, like the tapey thingy is eating really stuff away. But the point is, if you start taking care about your levels using this and use your saturation with brain by matching in and out levels, like I'm adding 10 dB, no, I'm lowering 10, no, sorry, sorry, it's really hot. You know what I mean. Input high, lower output, and you start hearing the effect. And you start hearing issues as well. And if you take care of them and watch your levels, you can much more easily gain more energy out of your music. And the mastering guy would totally love you for getting a track that is mixed around minus 18 dB. Totally. That's something I never did. Yeah, compensate. That's the word I was looking for. I so I made all these tracks in the 2000s and 2001 under the name of Arctic when we started Thinner, and I tried remastering those for 16 years now. I don't know how many attempts I took because they have so many issues, phase issues, that I could have gotten rid of by tuning the bass and the kick right. Way too much hi-hats and all other sorts of issues that I couldn't get rid of. And if I would have taken care about or better care about these tiny things back then, I would now have music that would be easier to handle. And thank you very much, very much, Matthias Friedel, for remastering those. They'll be released hopefully soon. Awesome. The thing and the point here is even the tiniest thing is an investment in the future, because I mean, if your music stays and you like it and you lose the file, you might be just staying there with a wave. And do you really want to have this way over pumped, overcooked thingy lying around that is totally dead? No, I have tons of those tracks and it sucks because there are many good ideas, and I just destroyed my own music by not taking care about the tiny details. So don't obsess about gear, obsess about every inch of dB. That's a much better way to think about it. Yep. So we had noise, Chords, video gain staging, noise, ITB, blah 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 blah. Benjamin, I know there are already a lot of videos like this, but how about building a full track from scratch, perhaps in multiple sessions? I'd love to see the whole process from your point of perspective. Yeah, let's do that. Not today. It's too hot, but yeah, I'm totally fine with that. I'm probably a little bit shy about really, I can't play, and I hate showing that off. Like, searching for the right notes makes me feel like ich finde keinen Reim auf Straße, but let's do it. And that's also, maybe some of you guys knew it, I wrote a Dub Techno chord stabby thingy tutorial like 10 years ago, and ever since, and it was like really basic stuff. I've seen people taking it and making videos about it on YouTube, and it kind of itched me because, yeah, as you can see, there isn't much about it, and some of the good stuff I figured out much later, and then I wanted to update the blog entry and felt like this is getting really complex and I would have to use way too many words to describe everything. And I mean, just a step alone doesn't make stuff interesting. Then I would have to explain this and blah. So that's how I ended up actually making a live session, because I also didn't feel too comfy with simply recording stuff that I then would have to edit. And maybe I'm going to hack myself looking at the recording of this, because I'm losing my words and there are breaks that I don't like and things are out of order anyway. Using this live thing, he made me force just doing it. And right now I have to say I'm really enjoying this, because it seems like you guys really get something out of that. Question? Yes, Dave. Exactly. Tell you know. You could also simply have used analog. What I'm really looking forward to do, and I wish I would have figured this out earlier, I got a license of Ableton 10 and installed it and was totally eager to try out the wave. Is it called Wave Shaper? No. The wavetable. Trying the wavetable because I also gave a few cents into the development of that. And I figured out no 32-bit plugins. So otherwise, and that's something I'm looking forward to, I will take care of the plugins, and then maybe we can make different sessions. One maybe with trying to don't use anything but Ableton, like a demo scene limitation competition. Who makes the most out of Ableton? And something else, because Dave, you said it. I used a free synth in the block entry because I wanted people to be able to get it. And I was also thinking about making this project available. And right now I have mixed feelings about that. Because I don't want anyone to simply start the project record thing and call it his own work. Not that I think it's that really much interesting. It's more a proof of concept to me. But yeah, we'll figure out something. Yeah, Wayfinder says JBridge. Does it work well and easily? JBridge makes me remind the days of Bus Tracker when we kind of added a bridge to everything, like UMV, tracker, rapper, stereo, mono, whatever. Okay, you guys are using JBridge, sounds legit. I will check it out. Maybe that solves a number of issues. But I think most plugins I have are also available in 64-bit. Yeah. Questions? Benjamin, you said you didn't want to interrupt. And I know you pinged me on Facebook about certain things, compression and stuff like that. And I think that is worth more something than trying to make sense of that in good ways in a 60, 70, 20,000 degrees hot room with me melting away and you probably doing likewise. Dave, thank you very much. This is inspiring stuff. We should all go away and do our own take on the stuff we've seen today. Yes, please. That's what it's all about. Make good music. Make good art. That's really the point of this. Like, don't stop obsessing about plugins and which gear to buy. Use what you have. You have so much. If you've got Ableton, you have almost everything, and the rest you can get for free. And make good use of that. Use these tiny things and pile them up and make great music and send me your great music. Would love to hear what you do with it. Because frankly, getting all the promos, there is a lot of not so interesting music out there, and my idea is really make more interesting music. If I can add to that, that's fine. If not, that's fine too. I at least try. All good. I settle it for the night and take my laptop with me to work and try out some stuff. Yes, do that. You at least got me into the mood of trying to reactivate creativity again. Yes, do it. And oh, by the way, one last thing. Ha! Another super easy mixing trick that I didn't do on purpose yet. Let's try something with this chord that is super stupid as well. Let's pan this shit. Uh-huh. Another layer of interestingness. panning as well is super important, super easy, and very often overlooked tiny little thing. So that's a giveaway. Don't pan everything into the dead center like this hi-hat, for example. It's just boring. Sorry. Easiest way to create space, panning. All right, that's really the last one. So about the plugin, I will write a list of the guys. 25 people were watching. For if you're out there, and tune in next time if you see this later, a recording of that. I could really help. Need some more people here, even though this was awesome. And I will put this thing into the YouTube archive, and tomorrow I will put the winner into the comment, or no, I will put the winner of the plugin into the description, and I depend and rely on that you get in touch with me on the interwebs, on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. I think with most of you guys I'm connected. So in case, you know. Yeah, wait. I have a few more candies. Torsten, thank you very much. Yeah, great nerd shit. Hope so. Private stuff. All right. So where do I find to tape? Here. Meet Chris. That's Chris. Hi, Chris. There's a link somewhere. Download all of the VST AUs. You'll be getting a shitload of stuff, and it doesn't have an interface, by the way. There's a lot to discover, and I will write much more about it because I think it's totally rocking the shit out of everything. If you're on Windows, also use the variety of sound stuff, of course. That's amazing. If you want to continue listening to the best podcast in the audio industry, you should check out these guys. No, not Happy Time Hour, Happy Fun Time Hour. This is really the best and funniest podcast on the web. They make me cringe and laugh at the same time, all the fucking time. And they are, as well, they deliver the same kind of input I've been trying to give you today, even better. A lot of meta stuff. It's not that much electronic related, but there is so much you can take away from that. Awesome. It's a podcast, by the way. It's not video. Yeah, and I think that's it for today. I want my beer. And I hope you had some fun. And I hope I'm not going to cringe while watching this again. There will be more sessions, for sure, because I want to try many things, and maybe I would also love to have friends coming in, and we can talk about stuff and yeah, all that. So I told you, I said I write it in there. Yes, please, tomorrow get back. It would be great if you shared this, if you like it. I'm sure you will, if you like it. That's also a quality control thingy. And right now I will just stop talking and start drinking. And looking forward to the next session. Unless anybody else has got a last question. Well done. Enjoy beer. Brain likes beer. Yes, so much. High five, guys. Thank you so much. You made this very, very easy for me because a lot of known names I wouldn't. Hey, Bogdan, seeing you around here. Meeting David today. Awesome. Wayfinder, Marco, Alexander, Lemick, everybody. Also my colleague. Gute Nacht, Thorsten. Gute Nacht, Dani. I really need to stop this right now. So. No shit. Gijs? Wait. Seriously? Dupont? Is it you? Man, I've been trying to get in touch with you for ages. Please contact me on any way, anywhere. Please. Amazing. Awesome. So that's the last closing note. Gijs, I also have a beer on you. The row format united today, at least mentally. Awesome. I'm getting my beer right now. Fantastic. So how do I stop this thing? Wait. Yeah. And that's that. Good night, guys. I really need to shut the fuck up now.